Hey guys, and welcome back. If I didn't think that Snow White couldn't get any worse, I was completely wrong. To be honest, I knew Snow White was not going to do well from the very beginning, but I did not realize it was going to continue to this extent. I mean, it's just one thing after another. So, I mean, there is no way that we can just talk about one thing without talking about another. And everything sort of happened, like just different things have been going on. So, we're just going to start from the beginning. All right, so Rachel Zegler, she was cast as Snow White. The first biggest contradiction was that given the name Snow White, she didn't really fit the part. Now, as much as I, at the time, really didn't agree with it, to be honest, I actually came across an article and it had her next to Snow White, or at the most, it sort of kind of, the way the photographer like gave out, like it sort of like the lighting hit her skin. She sort of did look a little lighter than usual, but given her ethnicity, no, she's not white. So even though we could go down this road and argue this whole political agenda and all this stuff, we're not really going to go down that road because, to be honest, that's not really my biggest angle with Zegler. My first encounter with Zegler was West Side Story. I was already nervous with seeing the remake of West Side Story. I absolutely love the original, but at the same time, I really wanted to see this remake. I went to see it in theaters, and I loved it. I thought Zegler did a remarkable job. She is so talented. She has a great voice. Her acting is not like what I wanted it to be, but then again, you know, sometimes, I mean, you never really get what you want, you know, to like the T, like a 10 out of 10. But I will say she did really well. So I was like, oh, like this actress did really well. I didn't really know anything about Zegler at the time. So all I know is she then got cast for her second biggest role, was the Songbird. So ironically so, apparently even in between from her first movie with West Side Story moving on to that, there had been talk that she was a little hard to work with. Then again, working in Hollywood, you kind of have to have a backbone. You kind of have to be a little aggressive, you know, get what you want. Don't let people, you know, sort of stomp all over you. I don't know. There's that case versus you straight up being a brat. I don't know. I didn't know at the time. So all I had to work with was, I only know this girl from one movie. So I'm going off of that. Moving forward, now we get to Snow White. Really, really strange for me. I was absolutely thrown off with this. I don't know how it hit you, but I honestly, I really did not think it was the right choice. I mean, like I said, at first I did have a little bit of that battle of like, okay, well, she's not even, you know, fully white, you know, and then I put that on the back burner. And by that time, there was already a lot of stuff that she publicly would post and say, and her PR is horrible. So by that time, it didn't even really matter whether it was a political agenda or whatever. We started getting sneak peeks of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and more like Snow White and the seven magical creatures. If you go back and look at some of the pictures, they are not dwarves. They were seven magical creatures of all sizes, of all different colors, and definitely a woke agenda being pushed here. And it just did not fit Snow White. So Snow White actually had to stop. There was a lot of backlash, so they kind of had to pause for a little bit. So they were already pushing however many, you know, thousands of dollars. They were already in the progress of making that the first time. And they ignored everybody. So we, the people, the audience that will be attempting to enjoy a movie, they didn't listen to us. So they started it back up. And that's not to like also say the amount of damage and hurt that they had given to the dwarf community, which those were perfectly good jobs, you know, that would have been given to them. So instead they had CGIs. That's great. Really, really weird. I'll even do I'll do a Zegler. I was just like, weird. It was weird. It is. If you have not watched the trailer, the dwarves do not look like dwarves, and to be honest, they don't even look CGI. They look worse than that. Now, I will stay right here. Like, I have not seen the movie, and I'm not going to, but I have seen clips. I have seen snippets. I have seen other YouTubers do different, like talking about it, and they like show these little clips, and it's enough. The trailer is enough. And what's worse is if it's not that, it's the whole concept of Snow White. So let's start with that. The concept of Snow White is no longer Snow White. The reason we love Snow White is that it's a simple, classic love story. It's kind of nice to have something short, sweet, and simple, and it's a cute little love story, rather than something really extravagant where you're kind of having to grab onto this, grab onto that. Instead, we have Snow White, who's innocent, that was kind of abused by her stepmother, but then she wishes on this one hope. She's like, I want my prince. I want a love story. Okay, she holds on to that. And she actually has to be very brave when her stepmother sends a huntsman to kill her. So now so we're moving on to the next arc. Okay, so like now Snow White has to leave everything behind to hide in the woods. And by sheer luck, she comes across the cottage and the dwarves. So maybe like a little bit she did invade, but it's in a cute way because she swept, she cleaned, and that was the whole thing. That's the most humbling thing. That's why we love Snow White, is she didn't just bombard and like expect them, to like, oh, she's a princess, or she's a woman, or yeah, they're gonna let me say no. She, like, even mentally she knew. She's like, okay, well, I kind of did sort of like walk in on their house, so like, it's like, okay, what can I do? I can cook, I can clean, I can wash, I can take care of the house, I can do all of these things. And then, that it's like a job. So she was just like, and she was also used to it. That's basically what she was doing at the palace anyway. Like, literally at the beginning of the movie, she was cleaning the steps. She was cleaning the grounds of the palace. So this was nothing that Snow White was, unfamiliar with. So we have a very humble, beautiful character right here. Then fast forward, Queen finds out she's still alive. Then we have the apple. And she, makes her wish, and I'm montaging because everyone, knows the story. Okay, that's what we know. The most simple story that is sweet. The prince, wakes her up with true love's kiss, and it is so beautiful. We all love it. And then now we have, I'm not really sure what we have. We have a woke boss, a girl boss, Snow White, that's I don't really understand why we have it. I don't understand Zegler, but they had to, I'll tell you this, Disney and Hollywood had to spend over $269.4 million on this poor project. Very, very poor, because it didn't do well. It got 1.6 out of 10. Guys, that's half a star. And even now you can go online and see footage of Zegler going to her own movie, and no one went to see it. It is an entire empty theater. And if that's not bad enough, theaters actually started taking Snow White down. It wasn't selling, so it was pointless to have it up. It's kind of bad. So now moving forward to, how did we go from a classic good movie to this? Well, it's kind of the star of the show. So unfortunately, Zegler is to blame. So what we have is Zegler was wanting to take on a more aggressive role with Snow White. So instead of the beautiful, dainty little princess, she sort of wanted a more different approach, as she called. She wanted an edge. She wanted to bring a new, modern edge to it. In an interview with Extra TV, she said the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. Okay, Zegler, well, if you don't like it, or you think it's outdated, or, I don't know what your problem is with it, then don't be in the movie. You obviously don't. She also was in an interview and admitted that she only saw the movie like once when she was little and she was creeped out and she didn't like it. So this is thoroughly confusing. She's an interesting character. It's like watching a wreck. You really don't want a mic in her mouth. Like, you don't want her anywhere near a mic, but at the same time you kind of do, just to see what she's gonna say next. And this is what she said next. Her next statement was, "I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is, she's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she can be, and the leader her late father told her she could be if she was fearless, brave, and true." Okay, contextually, I'm not entirely against the last portion of it, like being fearless, brave, and true, and becoming a leader. Because when you're a princess, you eventually ascend to being queen, and you do have to take on that role, all that responsibility. So that part, I'm not against. But she completely downgrades on Snow White's love story. And she's not dreaming about true love. That's literally the entire story. The opening song, which, by the way, they took out, is literally her making a wish into the wishing well that she will soon find the person that she's, I'm wishing for, the one I love. I'm sorry, somewhere, I guess, in communication, that did not get passed on to Zegler. Either that or she just did not care. She continued and said in a different quote, "There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird, weird." That is where we get the weird, weird. So a little focus on this quote I don't like is that she thinks that the prince stalked her, and it's really not true. If anyone has seen Snow White, the prince comes in at the beginning of the movie while he overhears her on his travels singing. Yes, he jumps over the wall, he sings to her, but she actually runs up to the tower, and he doesn't chase after her. He stays where he is by the well and sings to her, and then he leaves her. Then we don't see him till the very end while she's asleep in the glass coffin, and he doesn't know that it's her. All he knows is, if you remember watching the movie, it says that the prince just heard of a fair young maiden who was asleep in a glass coffin, and he found her. So, I mean, granted, it's a Disney movie, so yes, it's going to be her. And he wakes her up because that was true love's kiss. That was in the spell. It's only true love's kiss could break the spell. So he did not stalk her, Zegler. No, he did not. He saw her once. And that was it. So I don't know why Zegler thinks that this guy is weird. In my opinion, I think she's a little bit more weird and hyper fixating on this in a very odd perspective. But it really is interesting that she has such a demeaning perspective on a movie she's only seen once and that she doesn't even like. So of course she's going to have so many negative opinions towards this, and it's not a good representation. So I really, it's really unfortunate because she could have presented Snow White the correct way, but she wanted Snow White to be a girl boss, and she wanted her to fight for the kingdom, which I don't have anything, like I said, I don't have anything against that. Mirror Mirror did that. Snow White and the Huntsman did that, but they stayed true to the concept of the story of having Snow White still be dainty, believing in true love, or, the construct of the true Snow White, the essence of it was still sort of woven into it. Unfortunately, the live action, this one has not done any justice to it. It completely railroaded and just did not do what it was supposed to do. So instead, it basically took on the role of Snow White not wanting a true love story, not wanting a prince, wanting to take over the kingdom. And there was, to my knowledge, eventually it had a tiny little love story in it. And I even heard the snippet of a love story song that she sang with the guy. And by the way, he's not a prince. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but I mean, just Snow White does fall in love with the prince. So that's just me being a little choosy. But she ends up eventually falling in love with a guy that's like helping her, and they sing an entire song basically consenting to a kiss, because Zegler hated the fact that Snow White was kissed. The kiss was unconsensual. I'm pretty sure that if you were dying or dead, and if you could be woken up and revived, and all it was a kiss by the guy that you actually liked, oh my gosh, God forbid. God forbid. Like, this is just so bizarre. So there's a lot of little nitpicky things, but I'm going to move on to my next thing. And my next point is literally the thing that gets me the most, which, like I said, we started out with how I first was introduced to her. That was West Side Story. Now we move on to Snow White. Right now, it's her PR. She has a mouth to her. And shockingly, at this point, there's not a whole lot that she can say that I wouldn't be able to watch the video and say, I'm not surprised. Anything this girl does or say is just, I don't even know how to describe it. At this point, I think Zegler just does not care. That kind of attitude is so dangerous, especially in the industry of Hollywood. You have to understand, she was under contract with Disney and Hollywood. So the most interesting thing for me is she was under contract for a specific role, which is a Disney princess. And anyone that knows anything about that is whenever you are playing a very sensitive character, such as a Disney princess, you want to maintain a specific representation. So when you have little girls like watching you on TV or running up to you, it's like they know, it's like, oh, they're very sweet. And she's not giving that. If anything, she's not only, she is downgrading Snow White, the very character she's supposed to be playing. She is saying that nothing about it is great. She also complained that she wasn't getting paid enough. So she's really just a spoiled brat. At this point, there's nothing good coming out of this girl's mouth or her attitude. So we are at the point where it's just plainly her attitude that is so horrible. And now we get to the most interesting thing. I saw this and I didn't blink. I was not shocked when I saw that she was blacklisted from Disney and Hollywood. I am not at all shocked. She has put both of them through a tailspin and a whirlwind. I would blacklist her too. And I would do it in a heartbeat. I'm actually shocked she managed as long as she did, because this is, and that may also be because they were literally in the makes of Snow White. And so them having to like pause it all over again, they spent billions of dollars on this. Wasted. Disney has a GoFundMe now because they've lost so much to this poor movie. So it's probably having to recast and just put Snow White on pause. That's probably why they just sucked up to poor Rachel Zegler. I hate that. It really is unfortunate, because she's not someone that, in my personal opinion, has the right to be acting the way she does. And I don't know if no one's ever just taken her aside and, told her, hey, your attitude absolutely stinks. It's not princess-like. It's not appropriate. As a matter of fact, it's not even like common sense, like basic decent. It's not even decent. It's not decent. So not like her demeanor, her attitude, her behavior, it is so rude. So I'm shocked there were, the group actually like managed to be with her for that long. But they managed to make the movie. So congratulations. But she is now blacklisted. She was supposedly up for a Snow White tour. And I guess I'm blanking on the specific. I call it Snow White tour for short. Basically, it was just a interview tour. She was supposed to be on different like shows. And they canceled it. And I think that was their next move. They canceled that and then they blacklisted her. I don't know. I would have to like double check, but I'm pretty sure that's sort of how that worked. She did not like it, but then again, at this point, we really don't care what she likes because it's kind of a cosmic irony. You really didn't like anything about Snow White. You didn't like anything about the movie or anything that you did. You were never appreciative. So, I mean, now you kind of get a taste of your own medicine, Zegler. So here we are. You are borderline out of a job unless by some sheer dumb luck, somebody in Hollywood is willing to put up with you. This is where we're at. This is it. We are just so done with you, and it's kind of refreshing because now we can kind of move on. Snow White was so much for all of us, or those that actually cared. So now it's really encouraging that we can kind of breathe because she was such a poison apple. Like that is literally like, it's interesting that she got the role of Snow White. Like her attitude fit an evil queen better than Snow White. She just did not hold. So she did not hold that character very well. But like I said, there was a lot I could continue on my opinions and everything about it. Those are my primary points. Guys, like, you can go watch 100 videos. There have been so many people that have just been, you cannot hold your voice. You've got to make a video, got to get it out there, see what other people, like, hear other people's opinions, see what they think about it. But in short, guys, Zegler just had a really bad attitude and was so unappreciative of this big part. Because you have to understand, this was, like, she was breaking into, like, her big break, and she ruined it. So she basically kind of ruined her own career. So that's fine. You know, if you do that, then you can't start pointing a finger and having a temper tantrum and acting like a 5-year-old and having a mental breakdown, because this was all you. We didn't do anything. You disrespected other people. You also went against a contract. That's a huge one. So this is on you, Rachel. So I'm so sorry. I really am, because like I said, when I first watched West Side Story, when I was first introduced to Rachel Zegler, I thought she was great. I thought she did fine in acting. Her singing is phenomenal. She really is talented. And that's the unfortunate thing, is that she comes with a lot of issues. She won't cooperate. And because she's not willing to just cooperate, she's missing out on a lot of opportunities. So I don't know, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna miss the mic in her mouth. Like I'm just gonna be looking for like the next update, which I guarantee you there probably will be. I don't know, because it could be just another update where she's just gonna be talking about how she probably on her end, she's gonna like try and defend herself and say like she didn't do anything. I don't know. That's kind of like my guess, but in short, this is Snow White, or at least this is kind of how I feel. They're like, you know, how with everything going on, like I said, this is just one quick montage, you know, perspective. There is still so much about that movie that I don't like, but the biggest focus is literally the center of the movie, and that is Snow White herself. And unfortunately, a lot of the issues came from the actress herself. And that being said, that doesn't mean that if you are a parent watching this and you had a kid, a little girl, or you just had children and you wanted to go see a Disney movie and you took them to see it, you are more than welcome to do that. I mean, to be honest, it's Snow White. I'm gonna be honest. It's not gonna be great. It's nothing about it looks that entertaining. But I mean, for the sake of children are probably gonna like pretty much anything. But it's to us that grew up and respected Snow White and Disney himself, we're gonna have a little bit more of an opinion. And when we put Snow White on the back burner, when we put Disney on the back burner, then we look at the the actual issue, and the actual issue was Rachel Zegler herself. So that's really my perspective, is it really comes down to her and her attitude. But I would like to hear some other opinions if y'all have any. But that is my perspective on Snow White. I really don't have anything else, but I am looking forward to seeing some of your comments. Let me know, and I will see you next time.